UJAM Instruments presents Inside Sound Minds, an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at leading artists in sound and music. How did they master their art? What role does technology play in their creative process? Take a peek into the minds of some of the world's most acclaimed composers, producers, and musicians.
My name is Boris Salchow. I was born in Hamburg, in Germany. I live in Los Angeles at this point, and I'm a composer for movie, TV, and game music. My biggest projects here in America are definitely the video games Resistance 2 and 3, Sunset Overdrive, Fuse, Ratchet & Clank, and Crack in Time. I was exposed to music from, ever since I can remember. In the house of my parents, there was always music playing. It was always orchestral, very serious orchestral music. I think that's where I have my sense for drama from. I started with the piano, basically, because we just had one in our house. So at some point, I just discovered it and started learning, but also just playing my own little melodies on it. And then later learned it in a professional manner. For myself, later I discovered, obviously, electronic music, the guitar, and later I started bringing all of those elements together. And I think to this day, the fact that I explored the classical part with the means of the piano, and also a lot of more, let's say, aggressive guitar-based music for a while. And then I had a stretch of 4 or 5 years that I concentrated solely on electronic music. These three components are still what I use every day in the field of writing music for any movie or video game. And I just feel at home in all those areas. As a teenager, when I started playing in bands and making music, like people do, I quickly realized that I just love the very narrative and dramatic kind of music. So that, in the end, led to the situation where I realized I think I have to do film music. So I also have to admit I was never able to write a 4-minute song. So it was always like 25 minutes. and it went from one part of this, from opening to middle part, and it had a pretty extensive structure to it usually. And it was also, it might be true that it always had a tendency of being slightly dark as well. So I just observed myself basically and said, I think that's what you're strong at and what you like to do, what I resonate with. And I did that in Germany before moving to America. For around 8 years, I wrote music for TV series and movies, commercials, and so on over there. Then I moved to Los Angeles in 2005, and it just continued over here. Only difference is, at that point, video games have become a very powerful medium, and some of my biggest projects are definitely in that field. My creative process is different with each and every project I'm working on. Sometimes I have an idea right away, what's the direction. Sometimes the client, has an idea, and sometimes no one has a clue. For some reason, I always love the storytelling part. So if it doesn't matter if it's a movie or a video game, I'm first trying to grasp just the main story, and then figure out what is needed in terms of storytelling, which, by the way, is something that very often doesn't come up while I'm sitting in front of my equipment. I prefer, if possible, to think about the story as such, and come up with a concept that I think is right for that storytelling. And usually that idea I have when I'm away from my equipment, or I'm going on a hike in the Hollywood Hills somewhere or so. Well, the good thing is you can try everything these days. For a long time, you can try everything. And you have to, because you can not write a melody on the piano and play it to your client and say, hey, just imagine this would be horns and strings. So you have to mock everything up, be it an orchestra, be it a guitar, what have you. And that's all, happening in a computer these days, most of the time. And that's, yes, I'm using all kinds of plugins, but depending on the style of music, you know, plugins sometimes are just there to mock a real instrument before I have someone play the real instrument. But sometimes if it's more experimental or electronic music, the plugins are, you know, what you get in the end. I don't think that plugins take away the job of musicians, with the exception of big orchestras at times, because the price difference is so gigantic that I do understand there's jobs out there where they say we would love to have that amount of money, but we don't have it. But if it comes to single instruments, usually you're always better off with a real player. And if the budget is there, if you have a plugin to just mock up the thing, that the professional player will still have the job. In fact, I would even dare to say, by having a good sounding plugin, you can sell to the client, let's say we need a guitar here, he can listen to it. And you can convince him that you do need a guitar and that you hire the guitar player. So you need both. You need the plugin, and the guitar player will also have a job still. Of course, there's a lot of differences between writing music for a game or a linear medium like film or TV. Although I'm trying to keep the differences as minimal as possible. So I approach writing for a video game as much as I approach a movie as possible. So I ask my video game clients, for example, to send me the video capture of someone playing through the game. And really, I just concentrate on the story and try to make sense and treat it like a linear project, like a movie, if possible. In terms of the technology I'm using to create the music, there's not a big difference in there. Only difference may be that some of the video games have an incredible amount of music in there, and if you have to come up with like 3 hours of music, you cannot record everything live. In terms of, you know, my most important tools, it's interesting, I think, because what I said earlier, to me, the idea is always first. And I'm more the type, when I have an idea for the creative direction of something, and then I see what I need to accomplish that. I first have the idea, and then if I need a certain, you know, software, or I ask a bunch of like friends and colleagues, hey, for this to accomplish this, you need this, then I go and buy it. So for me, it's always the idea is first, and then I go get the part. It would be a power generator, a computer with a sequencer, and a pair of headphones. Oh no, I need a MIDI controller as well. So it's going to be tough to reduce it to 3. So the easy answer is I would take my computer with all the plugins in it that it has. But maybe it's also good to take one instrument that is, you know, an unplugged version, like a guitar, for example. There was a moment in my life when I realized that life can be much shorter and unexpectedly. And that was the moment that I made the decision, okay, if life can end much, you know, more abrupt than you ever thought, you better make something out of the time that you have. And that was a moment, so I needed that scary moment to make the decision to dare become a film composer. For those starting out today, my only suggestion is that you unfortunately have to be good at everything. You have to, you know, like all the advice that people already had in the few years, you have to combine all of that and do it all at once. You have to have your own voice. That's definitely true. But you still have to be flexible enough to deliver whatever style is necessary, because it does happen a lot. You get booked for, you know, for a certain project with a certain style, and then as you're working on that thing, something changes and the client realizes, hey, we want a completely different style. So you have to have your own voice, but you have to definitely be able to switch style at any second and you know, deliver something, you know, of great quality. So both is true. You have to be flexible and develop your own style.